My name is Mark Stone. Back in the day, I played in a hardcore band called Idle Rich, and then for a number of years, I played in a band called Medicine Ball. I went and saw the Tubes, and the first thing that would probably be considered of that ilk would have been the Talking Heads. Um, Shortly thereafter, I would have seen Elvis Costello, the Boomtown Rats, Devo, some larger name things like that. But also by 1981, I would have seen the Professionals, who would have been Paul Cook and Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols band immediately following that. Um, and Black Flag in 1981 as a five-piece when just after Henry had joined and Des Cadena still played second guitar and Emil was the drummer. So over the course of a very short period of time, it went from Kiss to Black Flag. The Black Flag show was at the Living Room. I don't remember how I got in. I was way underage. I don't remember if I had a fake ID or if it was all ages. I think it was 1981. At that point, I had already seen the Decline of Western Civilization movie and knew about them primarily from that. I remember the whole atmosphere at the show being really, really scary. There were folks down from Boston, and the whole vibe was kind of terrifying, and I felt somewhat out of my league. I have a Santa Cruz red dot insignia skateboard that I've had since 1982. I think that's probably my favorite. I wish I'd seen the Birthday Party. I absolutely adore their records. The videos I've seen of them from the day seem explosive. My most compelling skateboarding memory, for whatever reason, is kind of ancillary to skateboarding, but it was of Mark Gator Rogowski in the courtroom at his sentencing apologizing for the murder of the girl that he killed. I would say best punk band ever are probably Wire. Their early recordings, their contemporary recordings, the shows that I've seen in recent years, um, their stuff is unlike anyone else's. You know, even early punk bands like the Sex Pistols or the Clash or the things that you think of as being the first wave of British punk are very much recognizable as rock songs. They're verse, chorus, solo, chorus out. Wire's music dispensed with all of that, really broke things down to a bare minimum, dispensed with all artifice and song structure, and to me, Wire are probably the ultimate punk band. My favorite skateboarder of all time was a kid that I grew up with in Barrington named John Heltzel, who I haven't seen in forever, but was a really gifted, natural freestyle skateboarder. Wow. Who is the best punk singer of all time? I'm going to say is Keith Morris. In terms of his longevity and his influence over American punk music, I don't think anyone would have really thought when he was singing on those first Black Flag singles that he was really inventing the American hardcore genre. And over the course of a slew of Circle Jerks records, and now the off records that he's made in recent years, I would say that he is probably the most important punk singer of all time. Best show I ever saw was probably the Dead Boys at Harpo's Newport Jazz Club in the summer of 1981. I was, I believe, 15, not quite 16. Was Couldn't believe that I was seeing the Dead Boys. I think I got in with a fake ID. They were incredible, and the Dead Boys probably more than any other band, just because the sort of puerile nature of their songs appealed to me when I was 14 and 15 years old. Uh, want Made me want to play music more than anything else. So the chance to get to see the Dead Boys in 1981 at that time, at that point in my life, was amazing. I've played a lot of really good shows over the years. Back in the hardcore days when I was in Idle Rich, we were fortunate enough to open for the Circle Jerks, Black Flag once. There was a festival at the Living Room of about 15 or 16 bands, and the headliner was the Vibrators, and Idle Rich was the band right below them on the bill. There was an excellent moment when there were about 100 people in the band room, and Randy Heen, the owner of the club, came in and told everybody they had to get out of the band room except for the Vibrators and Idle Rich. That was awesome. Was in, I think it was 1989, also at the Living Room, and it was Soundgarden, Screaming Trees, and Medicine Ball opening, and it was sold out. There were probably close to 1,000 people there, and we played incredibly well, and I thought that our future looked bright at that point. Do what you're going to do and keep moving forward. Last night I went and saw the John Spencer Blues Explosion in Boston, who I hadn't seen in at least a decade, and they were fantastic. John Spencer is the coolest motherfucker of the week. In early 1984, the band I was playing in at the time, Idle Rich, opened for Black Flag and the Nig Heist at the Living Room. So that was one of those SST global package tours that came around, and Randy Heen was somehow able to get us on the bill. And so we went on first, and I didn't know anything about the Nig Heist at the time before they went on. But at that time in 1984, I was 18 years old. It was an all-ages show, and there was a very sort of positive vibe around the whole Rhode Island hardcore scene. And so when Black Flag's roadies, the guys who were in the Nig Heist, got up on stage and were playing naked and were in loincloths, and I'm totally fine with what they did if it was, an 18 or a 21 plus show. But there were really, really young kids at this all ages show while the Nig Heist were playing these insanely offensive songs. If Nig Heist played in town tomorrow, I'd go see them. But in the context of the show at that time, it was really, really inappropriate. People went to see Black Flag, and especially underage girls, and they were subjected to this whole thing. Anyway, at one point during their set, I'd had enough, and I climbed up on stage, and I got into a fist fight with their singer Mugger. I got thrown out of the club, and that was the end of the night for me.